Wan Tong Ling Ming. Welcome, web class, to the continuation of the Healing Organs series. And welcome to the continuation of the lungs. Healing lungs. So we'll see where we get today, all the way. I got some beautiful feedback again from a few of you, and one in particular was really gorgeous. Really, in Spanish you say lindo, que lindo, how cute, how I really find it gorgeous, the feedback that I got. It's from a student of mine in Austria. And she wrote me a big, long email with all the things that are going on in her life right now. And I really loved that, because obviously you see me every week, and so somehow you connect with me on a visual level. I connect with you at the chi field level, chi and shen level, via thoughts and information. But it's nice to hear from you. And so the student, she wrote to me about how the change from the local weekly class to the web class has been for her, and how she kind of was angry for a while, because she thought it's too little practicing. And we talked about this in web class very often, and it's quite funny how the response is. You know, a lot of people say, no, I love the information, I can practice by myself. And others say, well, you know, I love the sessions when we practice a lot. And I understand you both. I only have 1.5 hours each week. I'd love to have you for a 2-week workshop or a 3-month workshop. I have enough information to talk about lots of things, and I'm, you know, as I'm learning from Janse more and more and more, and from all the other things I've learned regarding health and health. I've learned a lot of things from a lot of people. Regarding life, I always feel like everything I've learned basically comes from Janse. And all the other things I have learned about life, I have learned a lot from Janse that it isn't really very beneficial for life. So that's why, for me, all that I have learned about life kind of seems to come from Janse, because his understanding is coming from the total reality. Coming back to my student, so she says, in the beginning I was a lot angry just about, you know, we didn't practice so much, and I was thinking, I caught myself thinking about, well, I didn't practice, now I didn't practice today, and, you know, I don't have the time for practicing. And so there are several things that I find very cute about the whole situation, or the whole email. The sharing is, first, that she is actually so honest to share that with me. So that's very lovely and very courageous and very open. And the other cute thing, or very gorgeous thing, is that came out of this is actually that because of her openness and her sharing, something beautiful has happened. Interaction with some other students or another student. And that's what I find especially wonderful about that. You know, the web class is the initiation for having a thought or having an observation, and then in real life and through our interactions we can get support if we are stuck somewhere, or we that you support each other in using the web class in further growth. And so a friend of hers told her that, when she said that she's quite angry and she knows she shouldn't be angry, but her friend said, and she doesn't even speak very well English, the student said, who wrote the email. Sorry, I'm trying to get this all right in my head. So the student said about her friend, which is also a student of mine, but she doesn't even speak very well English, I speak very good English, and she's not angry about that we don't practice so much. She says, you know what, I really can practice by myself, and I'm just so grateful to get all this information. And so hearing this from someone else helped the other student to overcome the pattern of anger in this regard or in this aspect, or regarding the web class, and made her, open to be able to learn better in web class again. And so that's quite interesting, because it happened exactly at the time when I started to teach the organ series. And as I told you in both other sessions, I had no idea how to start, and it just seemed so overwhelming because there's so much information. And I'm saying it again today because it hasn't changed, and actually it has expanded even further for me. The more I'm building this Chi field for the organs series, the Healing the Organs series, the more information is coming up, and I just feel like I'll never be finished with the lungs. Anyway, we'll just keep going, and we're going to merge into the large intestine today, which is the yang organ to the lung. So it's another organ out of the 5 elements charts or understanding of metal. And again, I would like to remind you that overall, the overall series of the organ healing series is really to help us all actually see how much information about one thing is relating to that one thing, how many different aspects and how many different relationships and connections we have to that one thing, in this case one organ. And therefore it should make more and more sense to you over the course of the following weeks, and as it looks like months, because I don't know when I will be done with this healing organ series, is why we are using Yuan Gong and Ren Shui for our health practice. Because the physical and the non-physical, the Qi and the Shen and the physical, are so interacting and so so involved into each other and influencing each other, that we could be basically, thinking every day, all day long, always about how we can be healthy and healthier, and we could look at, there's this specific information and this specific information, and we have a specialist for this area, and we have a specialist for this area, and we have a specialist for this area. And actually what we need is something that influences and balances and strengthens and heals and cures every aspect of everything at the same time. Yeah? So not just this branch and this branch and this branch, or aspect or aspect or aspect of one thing. We need the thing, in this case today still, the lungs, and all the other aspects that are connected. So when you imagine there's thousands connections to the lungs and all the with all the information that I'm giving you. No, not that I'm giving you, that are existing in the universe through all of its connections. I'm just trying to bring a few aspects of the information to your attention. That's all I can do. It is existing in the universe anyway. So the lung qi is in connection and in relationship with all those aspects, thousands aspects, many more that I managed to talk about until now and will manage to talk about in the future of these organ series. So I've been thinking about that yesterday, and I've been building the chi field. Yesterday when I was building the chi field for a web class, which I do every day through my life. I'm just building and adding to it and seeing what fits and what is part of the information in the chi field, and so just playing in the chi field really. And so I had this thought of seems to be something like developing into a never-ending story. And we haven't practiced much in the last few web classes, in the last 2 at least. And then interesting, the email came from my student, and I'm like, well, I don't know. And so my pattern about the pressure of getting the information out and how to balance all of this with practice. So it's just so much more information still. And so I've been thinking, what is the purpose of that series that naturally has started, Remember, a few web classes back, I had this idea in web class. It actually happened. The idea to me, or the information came to me. And then feedback came back, oh yes, please, let's do that, do the organ series. And so I'm like, okay, so just come with me and, let's go into this, and it will be done when it will be done, and then web class will change again. Maybe into more practice, maybe it stays like this for a lot of talking. I don't really know how this is evolving. I just sit down, I build the chi field, and I start teaching. And I guess this is the most natural way how it can be, how it will support you. But I had this idea because I was thinking about we need to also learn how to implement specifically what is especially good for lungs, or how we can work with the qi for lungs and large intestine, or in the future with the other organs. So I'll just go along with talking and putting information into the chi field. That can be 1 week, that can be 5 weeks, it can even be 10 weeks. That is the part I don't know, because this always comes naturally and establishes itself naturally. How the universe is, how the universe laws follow. One thing leads to another thing, and one observation leads to another observation, and this branches out into another observation which also relates into this aspect, and so on. And as long as I have information to give you, I give. But there will be a class in which we do, the chi work, especially on one organ, or the yin and the yang organ probably. Yeah? So there we will then only focus on some exercises which are especially good for that organ, and we also will go through, for example, all the aspects in third method, Renyuan, yeah, which are the segments that are particularly good for this organ, which is actually something I did want to do from the very beginning in the first class. And then in first class I found out that just so much information is coming my way, and that I want to share with you, and that really all belongs to the one organ. And so that was my thoughts yesterday. I was like, okay, what is the real purpose of these healing organ series? And I had a very clear understanding, a very clear thought, or a lot of clarity about it in that moment. The purpose is to actually help us all understand more about the total reality of health, and why we do need a system, Ren Shui and Yuan Gong, in which we actually can work on the totality all the time. Because how much time are you using each week, each day for your health? How much time, how big a time slot or how big a time frame every day or every week are you putting aside for your health? Do you know this compartmentalization? Compartmentalization. This is when I do something for my health, and I'm going to practice for 1 hour, and I'm practice for another 1.5 hours every day, or I practice half an hour every day, I practice 3 hours every day, and the rest of the time it seems to be going out of our consciousness or mind to work for our health, to heal ourselves. And so when we can, the purpose of that healing organ series is through somehow naturally, because so much information is coming and nobody can just remember all of that immediately, right? Or remember all of hearing. When you hear it once, you immediately remember all of it. That's probably not gonna happen. So just relax. You don't need to remember all of it. And for now, I'm leaving it online because there is no issue with the code of conduct of Ren Shui. There is no methods there, so there is no copyright there. So, it can stay online forever, basically. You have the link. And just relax and listen and, watch while I show you something, and always relate it to your totality. And just imagine that you're just adding water to a water glass until the glass gets fuller and fuller and fuller. And eventually you have the totality of a full water glass of information handy. But it's more that the purpose is to intrinsically show you how important it is to use all the time that you use throughout the day, or as much of the time that you use for yourself to make yourself healthier and happier, in the most efficient and safe way. So the least limiting way. Yeah? So when you have only 2 hours a day for taking care of yourself, don't you think it would make sense to take a system or use a system or use those 2 hours within practicing a system that works on the totality, rather than having this on Monday and this on Tuesday and this on Wednesday and this on Friday? Especially for those of you who are sick, every moment counts. And every moment in the chi field working on all levels, because as soon as you work with chi fields, you do work on all levels. Yeah, or you can influence all levels. Much more potent than anywhere else. Yeah, so I probably will say this throughout the series of the organs again and again, because it's just so important. Do you know what I mean? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? We are all so involved in living our days the way we used to, the way we learned it from our parents or our society. And fact is that the society, human society, is actually pretty sick, especially from 50 onwards. And it's getting worse. Younger and younger people, more and more, get sick. Babies, more and more babies are being born not healthy. And the complications within disease itself, the diseases itself become more and more complicated, more complex. So you do not have to wait for some cure that needs to be developed. You do have the total reality at hand. And this is one of the big purposes of this series, to help us all understand more and more and more how everything is interwoven and related and connected. And so we spend more and more time in a chi field working with information, energy and material, working with chi and working with the consciousness in a chi field. Because it will be the fastest and most effective influence in your health and life development. Okay, so the chi field is now very, very strong, and that happens because of the clarity of the information and the very purposeful information. So let's go on with the lungs. Remember, I told you from the beginning when I started with the healing organs, is that take a property of, for example, the lungs or any organ, like like any aspect. For example, immune system for the lungs means defense or protectiveness, and then play with those terms and let it float out into all aspects, not only so let the anatomy or physiological aspect, the quality, like the color of it. What is another shade of that color? What's another shade of the lungs? What's another shade of defense or protection? What's another aspect? So for example, remember, exchange is on the physiological part of the lungs, a theme or a property of the lungs, exchanging oxygen into carbon dioxide, yeah, and exchanging also blood that has lots of oxygen, carrying it to the heart, so the heart can pump it throughout the body. So exchange is a big aspect. And now through this, the story I told you about my student writing me that she was, the exchange from local class to web class and the difference in, the less practice versus more information first triggered a pattern in her. Remember, response and surrender, or response and reactivity, is also a theme, a topic, or a shade of the lungs, an aspect of the lungs. And so this exchange that happened in her head, in her Shen, about now I'm actually quite happy with all the information, I just had to allow the change. So often when we cannot change something that has to do with the lung qi information, so you can see like this. First of all, lungs is in the elements of metal. We also have the large intestine as metal there. We hear more about that today, I hope. I don't know. Some time already has shifted or moved. So the large intestine is actually responsible for getting, separating the pure from the impure and getting rid of the impure. We all know that our large intestine on physiological or anatomical level is doing what? It's getting rid of the poo, the stool. That's impure, right? Body doesn't need that anymore, out. But on another level, the large intestine also is kind of getting rid of impure thoughts, impure emotions. And the lung is responsible for exchange. Because how do you want to get rid of something if you haven't got it yet? In other words, if there is still anger, how do you want to get rid of it? It needs to go through an exchange. It needs to go through a change first. So lung qi, or the element of metal, is actually very helpful in facilitating change, helping us with changing. And so again, we can knit this thought further. We have learned that the lung qi is responsible for the overall qi condition, as the overall distribution of the qi in the body. So when we want to change something in our life, in the overall condition of our life, the quality of change and the distribution of the new thoughts is quite important. So healthy lung qi is quite important. Vice versa, when we have a lot of sadness and we can't move on, large intestine qi and lung qi have been used too much, or we weaken lung qi and large intestine qi over the course of using that. Like, if we never let go of old concepts in our minds, so if we don't keep learning, if we don't keep learning new things, the quality of exchange itself, the quality of the ability to change itself can get weaker. And as this ability is getting weaker, we're having more and more troubles to deal with our unhealthy patterns. So healthy lung qi and healthy large intestine qi is very important to have in the overall life cultivation, because it strengthens the quality or the property, the shade of exchange and change. So if you have been sick in your lungs, or if you are sick in your lungs, look how long have you been holding on to something? How long have you been holding on to a concept? And then really take that concept and compare it to the laws of the universe. Is the concept that you are holding on to so very tightly, is it going with the laws of a healthy body, mind, life, universe, nature, or is it going against it? If you are finding out that your way of thinking, your way of feeling, your way of holding on to an opinion, or your way of living is going against a healthy development of your life, or against health, what do we need to do? We need to change it. But if lung qi is very weak, it might be very difficult to change. So it is really, it would pay off a lot if you focus on lung qi for a while to strengthen it, to strengthen the actual aspect of being able to change and transform. Yeah? The transform ability, the ability to transform is so very important. But there's reasons for why we can't change, maybe. So, for example, often, when someone is addictive, there is, when we work with addictions, when we try to help people with addictions, or when you yourself have an addiction and you're trying to get rid of it only through, through working on your brain or adjusting it chemically somehow, or supplementing something else, then often, or when it's just not possible to break through, often we need to strengthen lung qi first and large intestine qi, because the large intestine can then get rid of it. Okay, so keep that throughout the whole organ series, and the web class is every week, so you have a whole week to work with the concepts yourself, which is the most effective and efficient, and which is the reason for those web classes. There should be only an initiation for you to learn how to use your thoughts, how to use your consciousness, how to work with Shen, how to work with information. So work with the concepts you hear. Take a word, any quality, any property, and look into your patterns with it. Look into your life. Compare it and relate the information to yourself, and you can take the whole week. This is why I took again some time to talk about what I talked about today. Okay? So, let's have a look what else we can find. When we were working on the lungs last week, I've started talking about suffocation or suffocating. You have seen the lung meridian, and it's like, so suffocation. But I've only talked about the physical aspect so far. What else could be suffocation? not only when we can't get air, right, or when maybe you have been drowning as a child or almost drowning or in another lifetime, so not that literal. Try to expand your way of thinking. Play with the term of suffocation. What could that be? Do you feel suffocated by knowledge you have learned and limited by it? Do you feel limited in your potential when someone says there is no cure or there is no way, there is no possibility? How does someone know? How can someone say that? The universe is changing all the time. So when there's always change happening, maybe eventually it will be possible. Maybe it's going to be possible in the next very moment. So it is really valuable to think about the things that we feel suffocated by, because as you are looking at them and as you're thinking about them, you might find answers and you might get out of the suffocation. And here we go. Your lung chi will get healthier because you're taking away those patterns of limitation, the thought, the ways of thinking, your thought patterns of how you think about one thing, how you feel locked into one thing. Which is interesting because in the metal element chart, the quality of movement is the movement towards the core. Also, when there is a core, the movement is towards the core, and the quality of that movement is withdrawal, to withdraw. What is the lung doing? It's withdrawing air into our system. What is the large intestine doing? It withdraws fluids and withdraws impure things to get rid of it. But it keeps the fluids back to help the blood volume. What else is an aspect of withdrawal? We're trying to withdraw from something, or when we're being suffocated, someone else or something else is maybe trying to, make us withdraw. So we can't control the others. We can't, make a predator into a non-predator. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. Over time, and when the predator is in the family, we all know that there's often lots of problems between husband and wife, between husband and husband to not, or wife and wife to not let go, miss or exclude our gay communities, or between partners. Maybe that's easier to just call them partners. Between parents and children. A lot of abuse is happening between parents and children. When they're young, from the parents to the children. When they're older, the children, then from the children to the older persons. So maybe we have the ability to influence them and change the situation, but if we feel suffocated by a situation in any of those situations, we need to start thinking about what we can do. Because we can't always just change the external. So look into what is suffocating you. Is it the thing that happens to you, or actually the fear of that it happens? Yeah, so Suffocation. It's such a big theme, so we could basically talk a whole hour only about that one theme. Let's go a little into that more. Because it fits interestingly enough perfect with the large intestine. Because the large intestine, the theme, one quality or property of the large intestine in Chinese medicine is release. Letting go, the ability to move on. Yes, you have heard that in the lungs as well. See, it is a quality of the lungs, it also is a quality of the large intestine. Another quality of the large intestine is compulsiveness. Compulsion. So when we look at these aspects, if you've had a lot of compulsion when you were young, and you know, right now, not all of us grow up in a Steiner school, and you know, the generations who are alive right now still are dealing a lot with quite a patriarchal system. Like the parents say, you do that, and full stop. Yeah, it's more like a lot of parents of ours have behaved more like captains, majors in the army, you know, or when I see sometimes how some mothers behave with their children, it's like they're ordering a dog around. You know, we do this, do not do this, do this, do not do that. It's an aspect. Control is an aspect of natural life. So, and it's the opposite of nourishment. So that is an aspect of education, yes. But it happens with a lot of compulsiveness often. And if you have had this experience when you grew up, that you felt under a lot of pressure from other people imposing on you like orders, or you had to behave a certain way, you had to be a certain way, you might feel quite suffocated. And it will have created a pattern in these areas. So it's worth to look at this and to think about it and to see how you can release the suffocation. How you can release this way of thinking that you have to be a certain way. This is suffocating you if you think of yourself that you have to be a certain way, that you have to function a certain way, that you have to achieve something certain or specific. That you have to accomplish something specific or be someone. These areas, these qualities might be quite suffocating. But it's in your hand to work with the theme of suffocation, and you will strengthen your lung qi through releasing the thought patterns around suffocation. And so, as you work on the lungs, you will always work on the large intestine. One way of easily understanding that is actually looking at the meridian of the two. Let's look at the large intestine meridian. Let's have a look. So, first of all, the external branch, remember the lung intestine goes the inside of the arm. Lung intestine, I said. The lung meridian is going on the inside of the arm, but almost parallel Do you want to see? Shall I hold you up? I'm going to show you the lungs one more time, just so you have the immediate connection. Have a look at the lung meridian one more time. Do you see on the inside of the thumb, but then just look at the arm, how it goes up, into the elbow, through the shoulder, into the throat. That's where it goes internal at the collarbone there, and the internal branch goes into both lungs, down through the liver actually, and into the large intestine, up to the stomach. Remember, descending chi, bringing it into the whole aspect of bringing food chi and air chi, making it into chi. And so let's change over to the large intestine, so you can have a look again at how they're actually interacting. First of all, it's basically on the other side. I'm going to show you this one first. It's on the other side. Have you seen the little branch of the lung going in the index finger? And here we have the large intestine meridian going there. So up the index finger into the wrist, and then along the lower arm to the elbow, up to the shoulder, along the shoulder blade area into Dutch way. From Dutch way it goes to the front. Let's look at this first. Can you see what's going on? It's going up into the face, around the lips and up to the nose. So this is one reason why the nose is releasing stuff when you have things going on in the lungs, because the lung meridian goes along, the large intestine meridian goes there, and large intestine is responsible for release and letting go, separating the impure. Yeah, so getting rid of mucus, getting rid of snot is the impure. Also, you know, it's interesting, acne happens often on those areas around the mouth and the chin and the cheeks. So the large intestine is getting rid of things, and lung is responsible for skin. Okay, so then we'll go, this is it, and here, can you see, right above the lungs, there's an internal branch going off. So you see there is the whole line, non-interrupted, that's the external branch, the actual large intestine meridian. But there is a non-so-well-known internal branch of the large intestine, and that goes down from the lungs, through the lungs and the breasts, basically. Well, it's, think of chi fields, they are influencing. And then through the large intestine. And remember, we have them on both sides. Yes, so it's only drawn into on the picture on one side, but we have them on both sides, of course. So going down through the large intestine, going down through the pelvis, all the way to there, in the mid-level of the lower leg. Can you see? Okay, so first of all, when you have any pains, you could have them along these channels. And so strengthening either lungs or large intestine, because the pain is along these channels. And it could be anything. It could be the suffocation, it could be the the exchange quality, it could be the property of transportation and exchange, it could be the quality of compulsiveness. For example, you have an addiction to something, so you are quite compulsive in thinking about that. That might be food, that might be drugs, that might be any chemicals, but it might be a way of thinking that you're quite compulsive about, that you're quite addicted about. So this quality is ruled by the large intestine. And because the large intestine is responsible for letting it, to let it go, it's quite a bit of a problem. So strengthening large intestine and lungs, or both, is a very good idea for people with these kinds of qualities or properties, or unhealthy patterns in these areas, no matter if it's thought or emotional. It's quite interesting. I have a really gorgeous neighbor here in the Caribbean. She's really nice, and she said something this week that made me think a lot. And actually, I heard that often. So she said, everybody grieves in their own way. Now we know that grief weakens lung qi and large intestine qi. Of course, vice versa always works as well. If you have weak lung qi or weak large intestine qi, and something happens to you that a normal human being would grieve about a few moments, a very evolved, or let's say grieve about a week, a month, a year, and a much higher evolved human being who is aware of total reality and can apply it and has a consciousness of total reality, is not finding any reason to, would grieve for a minute or a thought. But if you have a very weak large intestine qi or weak lung qi already, and something happens to you, you might get stuck in grief. So here it means to have the information, the understanding first and foremost, and with the understanding and the information, you then can go ahead and strengthen lung qi and large intestine qi. But be aware, I have to say it, as I will go on with all the other organs, you will see more and more how really they're all related, and how only working on one organ might not bring any results altogether. That's why we work with totality. This is why Yuan Tze has evolved, or developed actually, Yuan Gong, and is developing Ren Shui. He's not doing that for himself, he's doing that for all of us. And we do that for all of us as well, because through our application, we develop Ren Shui more and more as well. All of us together, and all of us for each other, and all of us for ourselves, first and foremost. So, can you see the connection between a quality of the lungs, suffocation, and a quality of the large intestine, compulsiveness, control? Yeah? It pays off a lot to very relaxed sit at the mountain, or in the woods, or in the garden, at the beach, or on your couch, lay down or rest in bed, and to think about those things. Build a chi field first, and with the purpose of strengthening those aspects and finding answers between compulsiveness, suffocation, and grief. And you might just experience a deep healing. The grief might be gone, and you can be happy again. That just brings me into another little, reminds me of something. I got a really beautiful email of someone yesterday, and it touched me a lot, because It's from a quite young student, and this young student is quite sick, is what Western medicine would call it. We in Ren Shui call it momentarily sick, and everything will heal. We have to think about how we see those things and how we name them and how we keep repeating them, right? Anyway, the condition could be better of this young person. And when she came to me for sessions and she's doing the web classes, she's practicing a lot, and she wrote me this little email yesterday. So when she came to me, she wasn't very happy. She had very strong anxiety, a lot of medication for that, which actually didn't help altogether really either. Or helped for half an hour, helped for an hour, but she was allowed to adjust the dose of the anxiety pills as much as she wanted. So with her work and my support, we got rid of that in after I think 4 months already. But yesterday I got the email and she wrote, "You know what? I feel alive again. I'm now driving through the city and all I saw was homeless people and problems and grey and rubbish and just suffering. And now after, working with you, it's like this, working with Ren Shui, I would think, working with the laws of the universe to make yourself healthy." She says, "I see flowers, I see the sky between the buildings. The other day I've held out my head out of the window while we were driving and just smiling, and I couldn't be a happier person." Her physical condition hasn't changed much yet. But this is the steps into where the physical conditions can change, because first the consciousness has to get healthy. And then the emotional chi, middle dantian chi, channel chi, organ chi will get healthier, and eventually the physical chi would get healthy, and that's when the cells will start reproducing healthy again. It can all happen like this, but for most of us, this doesn't happen just like this. And that's another thing that will become much more clearer through the series of the organs, I hope, because we start to understand the complexities between everything. Yeah. So, another aspect about the large intestine is self-poisoning. That's another property or characteristics of the large intestine. So here we can go again, for example, into the story of, when you feel quite compulsive in controlling others or yourself, you might be prone to addictions on a chemical level. So you might be prone to needing a lot of sugar, a lot of caffeine, a lot of medication, a lot of drugs, recreational or not, a lot of alcohol, or a lot of food. A lot of something that is not good for us in the extreme, in the excess. Excess? No. Excess is to enter something. Excess is when we have something too much, in the extreme. Self-poisoning. But also, we might be very prone to self-poisoning through ourselves, through our thoughts. Can you see? So when one characteristic of the large intestine is to release, to separate the impure from the pure and to getting rid of the impure, when the large intestine isn't functioning on the physical level, on the chi level, or on the shen level, you might be prone to thinking bad of yourself, and therefore you would be self-poisoning yourself. You might be prone to not respecting yourself a lot. You might be prone to not loving yourself a lot. And then you might be developing some compulsiveness about it. So thinking about these things of how can I stop self-poisoning myself, for example, self-hatred and so on, let's go to the opposite. How can I strengthen my trust, my self-respect, my love for self? How can I be more open? Looking inside and facing oneself. So large intestine and lungs are they're quite important, don't you think? There's a lot of, we as a human society, a lot of us have problems in large intestine and lungs. Well, lungs are responsible for the overall distribution of qi. The lungs are also responsible for the, water metabolism, but it goes further. In the element chart, or one quality, hold on. One quality or property of the lungs is to take care of body fluids. Body fluids, all the fluids. So in the element chart of metal, this would be mucus. Okay? But because the lungs are responsible for the overall water metabolism and therefore fluids in the whole body, there's more to that. So what fluids do we have? We have tears, we have saliva, we have mucus, we have sweat, we have the reproductive fluids, we have the cerebrospinal fluids, and we have the synovial fluids. Do you know what the synovial fluids are? Those are the fluids that are within the joints. I prepared a little picture for you. About the synovial fluids. So there is two bones, right? There is a bone and there is a bone, and that all forms one joint. So where do we have those joints? Elbows, which is large intestine and lung all together, shoulders, knees, ankles, fingers, in the toes, sacral, iliac. So we've got spine, we got tons of joints, yes? So can you see? The synovial fluid is here in between this blue stuff there. It's so there's the articular cartilage, the white stuff, and then the synovial fluids are actually, it's this blue stuff in between. Can you see? It's like, that's where your bones are basically swimming in, so to speak, the joints. So those fluids make sure that there's not that much friction, so that the joints are not being used too much. So when you work on your lung qi, when you work on your large intestine qi, you actually are taking care of all of your joints as well. Vice versa, if you're doing a lot of extreme sports or a lot of repetitive movement that uses joints a lot, like triathlon or marathon running and things like that, you are using a lot of qi in there, in those areas. You just use up the functionality and health of your joints, and you might develop lung qi problems. Can you see? It's always this vice versa thing. So that's another reason for why it's so important that we get out of, going to the doctor when we're sick, when we have a symptom, because it's been long there in the qi, and that we are getting into using a totality system in our health that works on all the aspects all together, and we have to do that throughout our whole day, our whole week, our whole life, really. Not the half hour in which we lie down on some therapist's table and then think we have done something for our health, or when we, eat healthy food, what we think is healthy first and foremost anyway, and that's it, We have to take care of the qi aspects, and we have to take care of our thoughts to be able to take care of the qi. How did I get there? Over the fluids. Okay, let me just change my little, come back to the lungs and the overall fluids. So can you see? Hold on, lungs. All of the body fluids are actually involved in this whole area. One fluid in particularly, because it is due to lung and large intestine, that's mucus. So if you have a lot of mucus, always, then you probably know that you should be doing something for your lungs, for your lung qi especially, and your large intestine qi. So it will clear up and out. Because can you tell me what will take care of your mucus actually? Medicine? Inhaling things into your lungs? That helps on some levels. But if your issue comes from feeling suffocated as a child because you constantly have been ordered around, or you were not allowed to be what you are, it's probably, how shall I say this the most respectful way, pretty limiting to inhale things or put some lung spray into, or even to run away with oxygen. It's if you can't breathe very well, or if you need to think into how to dissolve those thought patterns. This is why Janse keeps telling us, working on the patterns of our consciousness is first and foremost. Because they have caused this imbalance in the lungs 50, 60, 30, 40, 80 years ago. And it's never too late. It really is never too late. If you manage to find a pattern and change that from unhealthy into healthy, your lungs might clear up today, because your lung qi can suddenly connect and merge with the universal qi and bring it all back in. Another aspect of the large intestine is control. So, have you heard a little bit about it? Can you see, and I'll call it, lung qi is responsible for defense, as in other form protection. When, so large intestine tries to control. Do you know anybody who controls, who is very controlling? How about you yourself? I had the opportunity to observe something quite funny. I had Elaine staying here for a few days, and the poor woman was told to wash her fingers and not spill the flour all over and stuff. Because I was overprotective of my little house because I have to pay back the rent at some stage, and I was like, it came out so fast, and I was like, looking into this. Why am I being so controlling? I didn't have that when she was in Austria, or, it was quite interesting. Anyway, look at yourself and look if you are controlling, and look if you are controlling excessively. Are you controlling your animals too much? Are you controlling your people around yourself too much? Are you controlling yourself in too much means on a stressful level? Are you someone who is always vigilant of what's going on with a I have to draw back my chi, with a excited form, or with this, this being vigilant is very, very chi depleting. It's just very, you can just connect with the word and feel how you feel inside if you need something to be the way you think it has to be. You will damage your large intestine with it, you will damage your lung with it, and through this you will probably damage your whole system with it. But of course, if it came from someone else having controlled you on a very high level, this is where we come back to the suffocating experience again. Then you need to find ways how to see that the past is the past, moving on. And now you're going to look at this. So if someone, when you were young, expected from you to be a certain way, or to not be a certain way, to behave a certain way, and you just are different, then one advice is from me to say to you and to myself and to all of us, to say, that was the past. And my parents or those people did the best they could, because they didn't know more. They didn't know about qi, they didn't know about the influence on my large intestine or my lungs, just for over-controlling me. They were just trying to protect me. And who knows why they need so very strong protection for their child. It probably has reasons, and it probably has reasons in more or less trauma, more or less suffering, more or less sadness. Can you see how this has developed kind of like a devil's circle? It has created a situation in which someone was scared or sad about losing someone, or scared or sad about anything, sad about or being suffocated, or being, wanting to be different for someone else, or being expected to be different, and you couldn't exchange it, you couldn't transform into that, you couldn't transport or deliver. Remember, transportation is a big theme of the lung qi, and delivering something is what comes after transportation. So there is a lot of aspects that we have developed when we are young in our consciousness, or are still developing now if the development doesn't come from a healthy place that goes with the laws of the universe. So with knowing all of that, what do you do? Do you choose to keep saying, well, this is like that because that's what happened to me, because this was what was said to me, because this is what was expected of me, this is what was done to me? Everything that was means what? It means that it was the past. It's past. It's gone. It's not anymore. What you can do to balance control and sadness is to move on, let go, surrender, and just see it differently from today. Think differently from today. Exchange, and here we come to the replacement information. Replace the information. Replace all thoughts of, I can't be cured, there is no cure, with Qi is getting better all the time. With every minute I use Yuan Gong, my consciousness is getting better every minute that I choose to be in a healthy, in a happy, in a joyous state in which I choose to see the beauty of the flower instead of thinking about what happened in that age to me, or this person has died or has gone or is not loving me anymore, is not there anymore. These are the aspects that we need to start seeing, that when we have the feeling, the perception, that means that it's our reality, usually. This person doesn't love me enough, it doesn't give me enough, she doesn't care enough, he doesn't protect me enough, he's not supporting me enough, she isn't available for me, all the things we think others do to us. Move on, let go. How do we let go? Because letting go is actually something we can't completely actively do. We need to think about replacement information and replace the thoughts. Use every moment in which we would be thinking those things and use healthy information. Think healthy. Like my student done it, instead of the homeless people and the grey walls of the city and the trash, she now sees flowers and the blue sky between the buildings and the sun in the sky. And that's probably not happening all the time, but that's what we need to do. So if you were asked to be something, to achieve something as a child, maybe you had a lot of pressure in school for marks or to become a person that is very accomplished, go ahead and think about what it means to be accomplished. Think about what it means to be a purposeful human being. Someone who loves oneself, respect yourself, someone who is able to replace unhealthy information with healthy information, someone who is able to replace Qi depleting actions with Qi gathering actions, with actions that are saving your Qi, with thoughts that are beneficial to your life, beneficial to others, beneficial to your health. Instead of self-poisoning yourself with, when you see an aspect in your life and you go, I'm not doing this very well, change it, do it differently. You probably will fall on your knees or your nose. Change it again, do it differently. If you fall back into the old way of self-poisoning, go on, change again. Use the quality of control of the large intestine to control the things that are unhealthy instead of the healthy, or exert over control into the external where we have no control. Strengthen and large intestine chi will help you with controlling yourself when you have unhealthy habits. Strengthening lung chi will help you with that as well, because the large intestine really is the small brother, the little brother of the lung chi. It all forms one unity. Because we are at the theme of self-poisoning, think about this week how you're using your self-poisoning. When are you poisoning yourself? And you can think of it in all aspects, in the things you do, in the things you eat, in the things you drink, in the things you think of yourself, of others. When you think bad about others, in which kind of state are you then? I'm just not going to exclude me there at all. If we think bad of other people, in which state are we then? Are we in a healthy, beautiful state and we're just so wonderful, light and free? Is our consciousness currently busy with healthy information, a healthy quality of state? Can we control it? What politicians do and what economics do and what industrial people do and, big companies do and corporations do. What your partner's doing, what your children are doing or not doing. Well, actually your children you might be able to control. You also should be controlling them to a degree, right? So can you see there is no absolute, but think about this and see how you're thinking, about others, because that's poisoning yourself. Do you have digestive problems? Maybe your large intestine is too self-poisoned, can't get rid of the impure because it's too weak, not enough chi there. Too busy with controlling or compulsions of other things. Okay, so for today we're going to draw chi back here, and then it feels like we've gotten through a lot of information, and then next week we're going to do more practical stuff. We're going to do some chi work and look at what kind of chi work is especially good for lungs and large intestine. No absolutes, but we'll go and look at it so you with time you get an overall understanding. Go ahead and draw your vision back. Gently closing your eyes. Tongue tip is resting on the upper palate. Relax your whole body. Lifting Hui Yin to lower Dantian. Unify with the Qi field. Your Shen and Qi are unifying with the Qi and Shen information of the Qi field of the web class and of the Ren Shui global community. Opening into the universe and draw all of the information back to the center in your head. The information is being stored there, and all the overall information about totality is being transmitted there as well. All the things you don't have clarity about yet, within all the relationships and connections of lungs and large intestine to the rest of your life, within body, Qi and Shen, will become clearer as you work with those aspects, with the information. It is now inside of you stored. You can retrieve it and use it, apply it and work with it anytime. Feel the space inside your head and then open in the Qi field again and draw Qi back to lower Dantian. Nourish Qi in lower Dantian. Lower Dantian Qi is being nourished, and your life is changing due to the information about lungs and large intestine and its relationships. Qi is gathering inside. And if you like being in this state, if there's a lot of information inside of you, you can go ahead and continue to nourish Qi and do your head and face yourself whenever you're ready. I see you next week. Thank you very much.